he's like, dude, we need to get a colorist.
Mm.
And I tried out this one guy, and good friend of mine, dude. Like, I've known him for a long time, but he just doesn't have the skill set. And I thought he did. And he did a sample that was promising.
Mm.
And then it's just been difficult to art direct him. And he has a family, so he's like working at night. And this is like a single man's game right now, dude. It's just like grinding. It's going to be a grind for a year.
Yeah.
220 pages.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I think it's going to be good. It's good for him. It's good for his family. The money's not worth losing the mind of this book. And he gets no royalties. It's like,
yeah. Well, let me introduce everybody. We should be live streaming now. This is Christian Comic Arts Society, and we're talking to Mario DeMatteo. Did I say your last name right? I probably butchered it. DeMatteo?
DeMatteo, yep.
DeMatteo.
So we're live now? We're on?
We should be on.
Okay, sure. Cool. Never done a live stream.
I know, we just started doing these. They're fun. They're a little nerve-wracking at times.
What's up, Facebook? How do I find it online? Oh, here it is. I'm gonna watch myself.
Yeah, I want to make sure
that's
crazy. It's all going okay.
Marjorie Jackson, what's up, Marjorie Jackson? Oh, so I can watch it on mine and see.
Yeah.
Cool. Are you guys going to Comic-Con?
I think so. So Christian Comic Art Society, yeah, we were just talking about it. We'll see what they're gonna do. I mean, I'm in San Diego, so it's easy, and you're nearby too, so it's easier. I know the big challenge is that it's during Thanksgiving, but I'm like, I'll be here.
Wow, I'm interested to. I gotta try to get some tickets. Clint Plyler, what's up, Clint Plyler and Marjorie?
Yeah, Christian Comic Art Society usually has a table. You should come. We'll do see if we can come like last time they had it. Or I was gonna say last year, but it wasn't last year.
I'd love to go to Comic-Con. That seems like the dream right now.
Yeah. Get your vaccinations.
Yeah, I am vaccinated. I don't know if I'm super happy about that I did it. I did it for my mom, but
yeah. Well, I mean, now you could do Comic-Con.
Yeah. Are they only letting vaccinated people?
Oh, I don't know, but I could feel a little safer about it.
Yeah.
So let me introduce your projects at least. Mario's the man behind Bare Truth, the Bare Truth Media.
Bare Truth
Books. And he has 2 awesome graphic novels, Paul the Apostle, and his new one is Peter. I haven't read the Peter one yet. Tell me a little bit about it.
Yeah, so these projects have been 5 years or more in the making. We made Paul 5+ years ago. 6, probably 7 years ago is when the idea came, and it's just been this long journey. And this is the second book. It's a massive project for a team of really dedicated, amazing artists and writers. And these books are so hard. I'm sure anybody that knows how to make or that's ever drawn anything knows that it's hard to just draw one picture. I think this book has probably 1,200 to 1,500 panels, full color. So it's the whole story of Peter the Apostle in this futuristic universe that we created 7 years ago. It's the Bible in like a Star Wars meets Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, Lord of the Rings universe, but it's the real story of Paul and Peter, the actual biblical story. We don't create really much other than like dialogue, but if a kid or teen or family reads the book, they'll have a super strong foundational understanding of Paul's story and Peter's story. That was the kind of core that we wanted to make this a ministry tool for one, and that was the most important thing. And then I grew up with Ninja Turtles and He-Man. I keep forgetting to mention He-Man. I have this toy from She-Ra right here, and this is my childhood She-Ra toy. I'm blanking on this dude's name right now, but this changed my life as a little kid. I'm 37 years old, and watching He-Man was like the most important thing in my life at that moment, just getting lost in those stories. So 37 or 30 years later, thinking to make a Christian comic book and getting into making ministry tools, Christian ministry tools and comics. That was our idea that was my crazy idea to make it a He-Man influenced Bible. So
yeah,
it's out. It's finally out. It's been COVID, like made everything back up. We've been blessed to be able to work with a publisher, Broad Street Publishing. What's up, Robert Bradley? I'm sorry, I've never been on a Zoom right now, so I don't. Dean, Clint, how's everybody doing? Thanks for having me.
Yeah.
If I ramble, just bring me back.
Oh no, it's all right. So let's ask. Like you, right? I had projects that were long time in works, and so what's something that if you had known before you started, you could have given yourself that advice?
Yeah, that's a really good question, and I think about this a lot, and I think that I want to at least record as much of the journey as I can remember from start to finish, and maybe just for someone else to learn from it, because it was such a long journey where I worked with Brett Berner for a long time, just talking about it before we even started finding a co-writer. We were so blessed to have Ben Avery write the book. He wrote this story based off my idea and direction of I wanted to see Paul the Apostle riding on a Mad Max deathmobile through the desert of Damascus hunting for Christians when he was Saul. That was like the centerpiece of the vision. When I first had the vision, I was reading a book about Paul from N.T. Wright, this famous theologian, and that was the kind of seed of the idea. But man, one mistake, I think on all these projects, I would get stressed out, really stressed, especially on Peter. Paul, we did on our own time. It took us 4 years to do it. So I was investing money into it and time, and working with the artist Mark Harmon, who's amazing. He did the whole book, drew and colored, and let me art direct and just allow me to play in the sandbox of comic books for the first time. And he was very gracious in my art direction and every little weird detail and changes. It's one thing I would say the biggest thing I learned is you need to have a dialed in script before you start art. Because sometimes and I'm doing it right now on another project where the script, I'm changing it as I go, and it's costly, and it's not a good mistake to make if you can have your script finished before you're doing like finished art sketching and stuff. And concept art's fun and awesome and super important. And that's another thing. Spend a lot of time on concept art. Spend months on concept art. I feel like for my projects, we were. You there?
Yep. You froze for a minute, or still froze.
You there?
There we go. Oh, now we lost you. Let's get you to come back. So while we're waiting for Mario to hopefully come back, let me share some of his images of his book. So we can do that. This is Paul the Apostle, the first book that Mario was mentioning. This can be found here on baretruthbooks.com. This Paul Sci-Fi. This other book here, this most recent one is this Peter. You can check them out on there. Here on the website, you can see some of the art here. There you are. Your audio is connecting. I was just I was sharing.
I'm back.
There you are. Don't worry. I went to your site and was sharing images of the books while we waited for you.
Oh, cool. Can I play a video that we just came out with, so
of
people
course.
kind of understand what I'm talking about?
Yeah. So you can just share down at the bottom, share screen, and then go ahead and play it.
Yeah, this would help.
Yeah.
So we
great.
just worked on this video for the past 2 months. So this is kind of celebrating the launch of the book, 2 books together.
Encouraging our kids to read books, let alone read the Bible, can be really tough, especially with social media, video games.
Are you able to see it?
Yeah.
Oh, I'm looking at it live and it's kind of weird.
Oh, I think there's a bit
Cell
of delay.
phones constantly competing for their hearts and minds. Did you know Christian comics and graphic novels can be a huge help? We created the Graphic Story Bible series to help families like you inspire your kids to learn about Jesus and help lead them to a life of faith with fun, engaging, and edifying Christian graphic novels. Our 2-book graphic novel series, Peter the Apostle and Paul the Apostle, take kids on an action-packed adventure through the New Testament and give kids real Bible heroes they can look up to in their own lives. We used awesome cartoon creatures, colorful comic book art, and futuristic lands to spark kids' imaginations and help them remember the many characters and stories of the New Testament. Our award-winning graphic story Bible series is pastor and mom approved, with Bible references at the bottom of each page to point your kids back to where all the awesomeness actually comes from, the Bible. The Graphic Story Bible series is perfect for 7-year-olds and up, boys and girls, comic book fans, reluctant readers, and anyone looking for a new approach to Bible reading with kids. Our prayer is the Graphic Story Bible series will help families like you inspire your kids to learn about Jesus and help lead them to a life of faith. Available now at BearTruthBooks.com, where each purchase comes with an awesome free printable activity guide offered exclusively at BearTruthBooks.com.
There it is.
It's good. Some good quality too.
Yeah, that was my good friend, my high school buddy, helped me make that this past couple months. So it's just everything's so hard to do, you know. It's there's so much to do. You have to make a video, and it helped. One of the hard parts about this book has been convincing families that it's not some weird non-Christian thing, because I made characters out of creatures, and so that's been I don't want to say it's a mistake, because I still love it, and it's blessing a lot of families that do love the book. And it's not for everybody, but it's definitely a ministry tool for kids, and a lot of churches and pastors have read it and approved of it. So it's in the line of Veggie Tales, doing Bible stories with veggies, but I chose He-Man characters.
Yeah. Well, and I mean, I think what I found is, as a creator, it's good to kind of have a sense of like, you know, how you have movie directors, right? Like if you watch a Tarantino movie or a Spielberg movie or Spike Lee movie, like they have their style, right? And they put their name, right? So like that's a Mario book, right? Like that's his style in that. And you know, it's great. Step into it, right? No need to
definitely
apologize for it.
No, I don't apologize. And it's really, when I was thinking about the project at the beginning, and we went through a number of concept artists and developed a lot of the characters. And I had one artist that we thought was going to be our artist, and we went through a number of phases with him and had him do some scenes, and it wasn't matching exactly what I wanted. I wanted more of a contemporary feel to it. And another artist came in, and it was too much like Star Wars, where it was like very painterly and amazing art, but not what I was looking for. And then Mark Harmon came in and I saw his concept art, and then he did one page. And I was telling my wife just before I got on that the one panel that I remember looking at it in the kitchen at my parents' house, and I like started yelling. I'm like, yeah, we found him, we found him. And that panel is pretty much the same panel that he sent me is in the Paul book.
Yeah.
Like he dialed in my vision and brought it to another level. And Mark's so important to the project. Ben Avery too, without a doubt. He brought the professionalism and showed me what's up and
that's
about
wonderful.
comics.
I similar experience in NFC as a creator. Like there's peaks and valleys of the creation process, but that right there, man, that is a peak when you're like the art hits and you're just like, this is it, right? Like that's so great.
Yeah, that was a great feeling. There's a question, a couple of questions, or one question from Penny. I don't know if she's still on. I'm on the rough draft and development of my comics. How do you get a publisher? Is that better than trying to do it on your own? That's a really good question. So I did Paul on my own, and I had sent the script and some early concept art to a publisher and never heard back from them and didn't know what that meant. I just didn't even get a rejection. The traditional publishing route is, I'm still confused by it because I'm trying to do general market books and children picture books, and you needed to find an agent, and it's hard, and it was disheartening. I got rejected once, so I go, nah, I'm just gonna do it on my own. And I was very blessed to find Brett Berner, because Brett is one of the original guys in the scene making these comic books, with Zondervan, Kingdom, was that what it was called? His Kingdom books, and then he did Morning Star, and he worked with Ben Avery, and so that having him, and he is a cousin of one of my close friends, so meeting him was a gift from God. That was without a doubt. There's no other explanation for it. I was looking to make Christian comic books, and boom, this man comes into my life that shepherds me through the process. But the Paul book we did independently, and there's a lot of trials and tribulations with doing an independent book. I self-funded the whole thing. I was able to convince my dad to loan me some money and beg him for some money. These books are very expensive. I was blessed to have sold a marketing company right before. I have another graphic novel that I've been working on for 12 years that's still in my heart, and I look at this character every single day. I actually have a picture of him right here. He stares at me every day, and that's like, what.
When are you gonna get to me?
Yeah, when. And this thing, this is like a sneak preview, but this has been in my life for 12 years, and I started my other company to get this guy, Boobop. That's it. That's all you get. But going on a rant, we did it independently, and it costs a lot of money, and it's scary, and then you have to go sell books, and you have to sell the books. And I had to sell the books, and I had to go around from church to church in my van. That was my only way of trying to sell the books, and I still am trying to sell books. It's like it's very hard to get people to buy things because they have their precious money, and you have to tell them why it's important, why it could be a blessing for their family. So the first 4 years, the first 3 years, 2 or 3 years, I've been selling it on my own independently and going from church to church. And I was about to give up because I just wasn't sustainable business. And I had Peter in my head, and I paid for Ben to write the Peter script shortly after I came out with Paul, because I was like, oh, this book's gonna be this huge hit, and I want to be ready for Peter as soon as it is ready. And then I was like, whoa, it's so hard to sell books. And so the dream started kind of dwindling a little bit and getting dimmer. And I was still excited about Paul and was still selling it, but the whole gamut of running a business, from promoting it to running the Instagram to making a videos and constantly making content and doing sale, and I still by myself on it. So that part's really, it's hard and can be stressful. But that all being said, recently, a year before COVID, so 2 years ago, I was approached by a publishing company called Broad Street Publishing, and they really liked the book, and it was recommended to them by a close friend of mine, who has a book called Bible Bells for Girls. It's a family, Brent and Aaron Weideman and their daughter Rooney, and they have these amazing stories called the Bible Bells. And they came into my life and became mentors because they're doing it independently very successfully. They have a 5-book series, and they're selling a lot of books and meeting a lot of people and really changing a lot of lives and impacting families' lives with their book series. So it's really exciting to watch them and learn from them. And they connected me to this publishing company, Broad Street, who liked the book. And we started going into negotiations, and 5 months later, and having lawyers get involved, and thinking I'm selling out, or some kind of weird feeling of, am I making the right decision? I did a deal with Broad Street, and they funded Peter, and now are very excited. And so now I'm in partnership. So now I'm doing traditional publishing. So back to Penny, I'm so sorry I just talked for 10 minutes. How do you get a publisher? The quick answer is you first have to try to find an agent, and that's my understanding. I went an untraditional route. I made my book by myself and believed in it enough that I funded it and made it as a good quality as I could, and tried to sell it. And so I don't have the best advice. Getting an agent is really important, because the agent is the person that connects you to the publisher, and the publishers don't often work with someone without an agent. There are a lot of publishers that I feel like want to get into the Christian comic book business and are afraid to do it because it's still really a small industry, very small market, and there's not a great deal of great success stories. The two that are successful is like Action Bible and the Kingstone Bible, and there's some other books that are pretty successful. But I'm trying to think of another. Do you know another book that's like really
on that level? No.
Yeah. And then there's a lot of like really awesome books like that influenced me, like Faith Walker early on, when I saw what he was doing. Because they were hustling, like selling books. So man, this is a horrible answer for you, Penny.
No, but that's your experience, right? I mean, mine was very similar, except still no publisher. But the advice was for me, same thing, self-funded, was if I'm not willing to put money into a project, it's hard to expect someone else to.
Yeah, minimally, you got to invest some money into getting some concept art and pages, I think. But the script, I'd love to. I pray to be a mentor to somebody at some point, and so I'm open to talk to people one-on-one. If they have any questions, you can feel free to contact me on Facebook, and I can give you more insight. But I can give you more insight now if you ask more questions.
Well, and Christian Comic Arts is going to try to have some mentor-mentee moving forward.
That would be really
creators. Cool. Yeah, we need it.
That's what changed my life, to be honest. And then like meeting you in particular, Lewis. I mean, you've helped out so much, and if anybody doesn't know, Lewis is an amazing bookkeeper.
My day job.
But the mentorship is so important. God opens up doors, and I'm very convinced that God blesses your hard work and your faith in the project you're working on, and the patience of it, because it's a lot of patience to stick in this game. Seems like it's almost impossible if you want to make a living off of it. It seems it's really scary, and there's a storm, and I'm in the storm right now. I'm not making barely any money off of it, and I have a new project that's very promising, and like it's this huge light, and it's another thing where Peter came out, and I said, I don't know how I'm going to keep doing this. This is so hard to have another year where I have to shut down possibly everything just to focus on trying to sell Peter. And then this new book came in, and it was like a blessing from God. And it's like, please, it feels like he's asking me not to give up.
Yeah. The grind. I mean, I know that you've been on it and you do way better than I ever have. But I can feel like I just want to create. I don't want to go out there and grind and sell books. And that's just like not an option starting out. I mean, it is, because I haven't really, and you can do that. But it isn't like that refreshing to the soul.
Yeah. And your book, when your second book comes out, it's going to happen. And then you're going to sell books, and God's going to keep blessing you. I mean,
well, we're in production now, so it's like the nice stage.
That's exciting.
Art pages coming in, and you're like, awesome. Oh yeah. I mean, that's the fun part. So let's talk about that. So one thing in life in general, right, that we look at failure as a bad thing, but it's not. Like, we learn from it. Everyone fails at, often in life. So in your creative process, what has been a failure or two that you felt like you really learned from?
Yeah, that's a good question. I think early on there was an ego element to when Paul came out, because I was so excited for it. Yeah. And I thought it was just going to sell $1 million bucks. Like I was telling people, I was so convinced. And then I started to put in the work, and I couldn't even sell the book to my friends. They didn't. I was like, hey, buy the book. Like, you really have to like call them up and say, hey man, I've been friends with you for 37 years, dog. Buy the book. It's $15. Just go on there, buy it. And that's a hard thing to it's just hard to sell. So the selling part of it has been discouraging, but also exciting. And I'm getting better at, it's this whole gamut of learning. You have to learn every element of being an entrepreneur and being a publisher, really, because that's what I self-published the book early on. So it was becoming a publisher and acting like a publisher. And I made mistakes early on by not treating it as, I would go through these bouts of depression, to be honest. I would like sell some books, and I would drive out to a church, and I'm in a wheelchair, and I'm blessed to have a car and drive this van. I call it my spaceship. And so it takes me like 8 minutes to get in my car, 8 minutes to get out. I'm driving with my hands. It's like these hand controls. It literally is a spaceship. So I'm having to drive like an hour to this church, and it's just to meet with them to see if they're interested in buying the book.
Yeah.
And I got there, and they bought 2 books.
Yeah.
And I'm driving back, and I'm like, man, this cannot be the way I create a sustainable life for myself, like to actually eat off of this. So acting smart in that regard. But then at the end of the day, like, I did that trip in particular, and I made a friend for life. I'm friends with this pastor that he's been just a huge supporter of me. And it did get into their bookstore, they ended up buying, I think maybe 10 more books at some point. And now the second book's out, and I'm gonna call them up, and you have to sell. I have to like convince myself that what we made, this team of ours, and there was a new guy I haven't mentioned yet, Ishmael Castro. He colored Peter. He came on for the second book. Mark did the whole first book.
Yeah, that's incredible.
Penciled it, inked it, colored it, lettered it. Insane. It's a human feat of accomplishment. Like when I look at Paul, I'm just blown away, because it's crazy that we made that book. And so I don't want to say that trip, the hour trip, was a mistake, but it's just time and it's energy, and it's hard. It's hard to sell books.
Yeah. Well, and I found that too, is that like, definitely tend to say, like, it's a different boat to say, this is going to put food on the table, versus like, it's just on it isn't what I need to put food on the table.
Yeah.
But at the same time, like, the journey and the people you meet creating in the community, oh my gosh, it's just so worth it. I mean, beyond worth it in the money. Like you said, I made a friend for life, right? I've met people who you would have never met, who, and you get to touch a lot of people's lives, right? Like, I may not sell a lot of books, but there's people who are like, I love your book, right? Like, it's incredible.
And that's the huge blessing that comes with the struggle, for sure.
Yeah.
And that is without a doubt, that's kept me fueled and fired up, that I'm touching lives, and that our books are helping families lead their kids to Christ. That's the most important part, that sometimes it gets faded a little bit in my determination to make a successful business. The eternal rewards and the huge blessings that we're putting on people's lives, and that God's moving through these books. That's such an exciting feeling and energizing. And it's important that we remind ourselves of that. Because there's guys that I follow on Instagram, and I want to do a shout out to this dude. There's so many awesome books coming out too, that it's so exciting to see all this really amazing stuff. The Mercy Way book on David, the Terminus stuff, the Dominion books. I can't wait to get my copy of that. And there's this guy, Comics for Christ. Let me see this. Comics for Christ on Instagram. This dude is incredible. He has these little strips, and they're like his ministry, and the art is great. It's all him doing it, hand done, and he tells these little stories in these comic strips, and he blows me away. And he speaks to me all the time in his comics. Like, I need him to keep making comics. He's become like a part of my weekly time with Jesus. And so that's, man, it's so important and so awesome to be part of this community. I'm really, really blessed. I hope I don't come off as pessimistic about the selling part. It's just the stressful part of it, but there's so much joy and light and beauty, and it's cool that it's small and pretty intimate community. It's rad to see. Going to those Alpha Omega conferences were some of the coolest times of my life, to be honest. I met lifetime friends there.
I agree. And it's like a very supportive, right? Like, oh, you're putting something out, like, oh, cool, like, great, like, do it, like, I'll buy it, keep putting stuff out. So we had a question from Marjorie. Part of it is saying, that she's a full-time student, and so she's got ideas for a comic. How can you kind of put that to paper, and improve on it? And so similar, like, to your one idea, right? Like, I've had this idea and it's sitting there, but like, I'm doing other stuff right now.
Yeah, definitely. And we started Paul when I was in school. It was my last year of college, and then I kept going. I got my master's in creative writing. But one thing I've been telling people that's really an awesome and easy way to learn about comics is is read comics.
Yeah.
Read graphic novels, whatever the genre you're going into. It's important you read that genre of books.
Yeah.
And my genre right now, the Peter and Paul book, are Bible comics. So I had a little easier route. This isn't an original story in any way. We used the Bible. So we had like a script made for us that was perfect.
Yeah.
And we just had to make it into a comic. But what I wanted to say is find books you like, and you can do this with any comic book, and you could do it right now. And it's going to change your life if you've never done this before, or if you haven't read a book on comic book writing. But take your favorite comic book, go to page 1, 2. I would start with 1 and 2, and I would challenge you to do 5 pages. But you look at that book and you get a piece of paper next to you or your computer, and you reverse engineer the comic book and write the script for that book you're looking at. So you start with page 1, panel 1. And this doesn't have to be perfect, but it should be influenced in a little bit by a movie script. And if you read a movie script, it would help you. That's been influential. You can find comic book scripts online, and that will help you even more by reading comic book scripts. I highly advise that too. You can just Google comic book script and a bunch will come up, a bunch of famous ones like V for Vendetta. You can read that for free. But reading those scripts is helpful because it's a very particular way of writing, and it's not exactly like just writing long form story in pages. You can write that story, and that's the most important part. If you can write a story that has a beginning and an end, that has a climax, and try to have a three acts in it. And there's a lot of books on writing that I recommend. The Writer's Journey. I don't know if we can put these in a link below, but Writer's Journey, Save the Cat. Save the Cat is so critical. If you can read that book, and I try to read that book at least a couple times a week, just going over some of the practices for brainstorming. And then doing that reverse engineering is like hands to paper. You're seeing how they write a comic book script. So you say page 1, panel 1, long shot of this building in New York City. Page 2, or panel 2, close up of a rat in the alleyway eating ooze. Page 2, panel 1, a wide panel. So you can even describe the panel, the size of the panel if you want. Half page panel, and then you do narration. So in the heart of New York City, caption, in the heart of New York City, an evil darkness lurked in the shadows. Panel 2, narration. I'm making this up on the spot.
Turtles. I know where you're going.
Yeah,
Turtles
and then page 2, panel 1, and then you describe the art. A rat is eating on broken glass, ooze. His face starts mutating. Panel 2, close up. The mutation is getting stronger. Panel 3, it's the rat's getting bigger and bigger, and you could even say it smells like dog crap in the alley, because this is for you to create the feeling and the emotion that either you're going to use to draw this thing, or you're going to partner with an artist and then either art direct the artist, which some people do, and which I did. I have a very particular vision, and I come out of art direction, out of marketing. So that was like the exciting part for me, is that, okay, I'm going to become like the director of these projects, and write my own original stuff. Once again, the sneak peek.
Yeah.
Who lives? But
But
For
we got
Marjorie,
another question. I mean,
yeah, going back to Marjorie one more time. Read those books. There's another book called Story. I have it right behind me. Story by Robert McKee. That Story by Robert McKee is super good book. Save the Cat, The Writer's Journey. Writer's Journey takes you through the like hero's journey story arc. It's all just good stuff to have under your belt to learn how to tell stories and read books. Reading, I think, is the most important thing. Reverse engineering, and then just having fun with it, not stressing out. That's like, don't stress out on trying to make a comic book. Have fun, write, and just pray about it, and really like just have fun with it. Stressing out is never going to help the project. I think watching movies, falling in love with stories is so important, and maybe Marjorie's like that. Again, if Marjorie, did my computer just turn off? No. If Marjorie wants to hit me up on DM, I'd love to talk more about it, but it's good to be in school. So let me ask you,
so like me, your book uses scripture as the skeleton, right? Of the story. You know, hey, we're gonna make the story, but it's already been written, and we kind of add flesh to it, or our take. And one of the things that I love about that is, and about yours is, I like that if you read your book and then you go read the passage, it's gonna align.
Yeah.
Right. And it's almost like a music video where you're like, oh, now I have this mental cue reminders of this biblical truth and story. And so it's just like cements it, it empowers it. What are some other ways, or speak to that way, that putting God's word in the comics, you know, how that plays out, or what do you think about that?
Yeah, I am very, I feel blessed and in like a honorable group of projects that have translated the Bible. I mean, dating back to before, I mean, the earliest Christian ministry to the people was these murals, these frescoes and on church buildings, and mosaics, images told the scripture to people who couldn't read. So for that, we're in like a special club, and I feel really I just feel blessed to be part of that tradition of using images to portray the gospel. The illustrated Bible has an amazingly beautiful and lovely tradition that dates back to the beginning of the printing press, even before the illuminated Bibles. So nothing is new here. What we're doing, we're just bringing it into the modern age with comics, and that was done. I mean, Stan Lee had Bible comics and Marvel, and it's old. I've seen old Mormon comics that were like super old and crazy awesome, like these old Mormon comics. But yeah, so the thing that was really important for us is that exactly that procedure, that a kid or child or family could read this book, because we exemplified some of the scenes that kind of get read over sometimes by kids. One scene in particular is Paul blinds this sorcerer named Bar Jesus, and that scene always was like, man, he's like, he's using this awesome power of God, like it's not Jedi force, but he's straight up created clouds in this guy's vision, and he falls over, and he's a sorcerer named Bar Jesus, and he has this dude and this emperor that he works for, or this governor, kind of in his clutches. So like that scene is a real scene. It's a few sentences. It's like a paragraph, and we used probably 3 pages for it. And I didn't want to invent that scene, but we amplified it by illustrating it with these creature characters. And it was like the frosting on top for a kid to ask his parent, hey, did he really do this?
Yeah.
And she's like, I don't know. Because this is, a lot of parents have told me that. They're like, I didn't know he faced the sorcerer.
Yeah.
And he questioned me about it. And we opened up the Bible, and there it was. It was exactly how you illustrated it. And it just brought light to it. And now my son or daughter remembers it. And that was one of the reasons why we did creatures and characters. One, there's already awesome Bible, like what you're doing, Samson and Action and Kingstone. Yours I love because you bring more personality into yours, and I think that's really the best way to do it, to bring personality to the characters, because Action Bible and Kingstone are amazing and they have personality, but they stick even
closer,
harder and closer to the truth, which is great, because that's like the Bible. I mean, I would say if you give someone the Kingstone volume, you're like, here's the Bible in and it blows people's minds. I have the 3 books right here. You could kill someone with this 3-book thing, but it's amazing, and it has its place. My book's like the punk rock version. That but I wanted to make sure that it was accurate to the scripture, because I didn't want to do like even though I kind of like parts of that book or the movie Noah's Ark with the gladiator dude. They invent like these rock creatures, and that's confusing, and I don't think that's not what I want to be doing.
I don't want to make it confusing. Like, you should go, there's a guy, have you heard of the Word for Word Bible comic? He's out of England. It's just similar, right? Like his is like straight word
scripture.
Scripture.
Yeah, that's awesome. And there's a huge need and place for that. I mean, dude, that's the thing. Like, I have this little handwritten note by this girl. This girl, I met her her name's Alexa. I met her at this homeschool event, and she goes, "Hi, it's Alexia. I already read your book, and I'm probably going to read it 100 more times. I love the book because I love comic books, and at my age, I felt 11. I felt it was perfect, and I can't wait for your next book to come out. I love your business, and thank God that God would lead you into more fun and adventures. Again, I loved your book." And I met this girl, and she had me sign her book twice, like the first day at the event. And her mom said she went home and read the whole book in one sitting in the hotel room and decided to write this little note. And it's like, if this is the only girl that ever read my book, and all the stress and all the money and all that part of it, man, that's the reward for sure. Like, just the one sheep. I'm not saying she was lost or anything, but getting those, like, just like this guy, Comics for Christ, he has like 1,000 people, and he does these sermons, like straight up, he just does sermons. He gets on and gives a sermon, and I'm not friends with him enough to know what he does for a living or behind the scenes, but man, that guy is reaching me, and it's a big ministry. It's important. Ministry is the Great Commission. It's more important than all the other dumb stuff we do.
Well, and one thing that when you do Bible-based comics, there's an element of you're hitching your wagon to the word that doesn't change, right? Like, there's a longevity to, like, the story's been here way before us and way after us. And so hopefully your creation jumps on that train, right? So what are some, like, what comes to mind for you sometimes, or what's a recent time where, like, you're reading something in the Bible or think about it and you just think of your book, like, oh, the scene in my book, right? Like, comes to mind, right?
Just today I was I'm in, it's the business, so it's exciting, and this is what I'm trying to make my livelihood. So there's like a seriousness to treating this blessing with respect and not procrastinating, because if there's nobody behind me telling me what to do, I can easily just go outside and
Garden.
grow tomatoes, because I like to grow food. So I can
Yeah.
easily go outside and say, oh, I need a break, and pick
Yeah.
my tomatoes and work on my garden. And so there's a storm kind of swirling around a little bit right now with where we launched this book. I'm working on a second book. We were really like blessed is the only word to start working on The Hiding Place, which is Corey Ten Boom's book. She was this amazing lady from World War II. She was hiding Jewish people in her clock shop and with her family, and they all get sent to a concentration camp, and her sister and dad die, and she's in the camp praying for the Nazi guards, praying for their forgiveness, and constantly thanking God for the storm, because everything's just falling apart, and she's about to die, and she's in this rat infested, lice infested building, and they're getting tortured, and her sister's telling her to thank God. And all these miracles happen throughout the book, and she gets out and opens up these rehabilitation centers for prisoners from the concentration camps, and it eventually evolves into places of reconciliation where she brings in Nazi guards, the ex-Nazi guards and ex-Nazi supporters, to reconcile with these people that suffered in the camps and had their families murdered. And she goes on to travel with Billy Graham and blah, 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 all that. It's the most amazing story. And now the reality has set in that we have to make a graphic novel of this famous, important book in 1 year. And it's an insane deadline. And it's my fault for saying I could do it in that long. It was my doing, and possibly a mistake, but we're working 100% over 8 hours a day. Ishmael Castro is on the job, and it's just there's a storm. So bringing that back, I thought of Peter in the storm today, and was like, man. And then I went to the book and saw how we just depicted the storm, and it's this amazing swirling. And then I posted it on Instagram today. But yeah, if we get caught up in the storm and are all worried and stressed out and feeling and letting depression and anxiety build up on things that a lot of stuff we can't even control, it can eat us alive, and it eats me alive. So it really takes God to pull us out of the storm, and crying out in desperation, saying, God, give me the strength to get out of bed right now. Because today at 1, I was like, oh, I'm just going to go take a nap. And I have a list of things I have to do, important things. And I went and laid in bed and couldn't even sleep. I was just laying there with all the storm just swirling in my brain. And then it was just like, God, give me the strength. And I got up and got back to work. But yeah, I really just encourage people to not let art bring you down into depression. But sometimes I think that storm is important. It drives us, and once you make it out and see the light, and it's beautiful. And if you allow God to work through it, it's, I think, extra strengthening and sharpens you up for the next time, and just builds your confidence that you can get through this stuff. Because it's often scarier than it really is. I mean, at the end of the day, if I don't meet my deadline, no one's going to die. I mean, this isn't world changing. I mean, I think it's world changing, but it's not.
Right.
My family's, if I'm a good husband and a good uncle and being faithful to my mission and calling, that should be more important than this like weird storm. Jesus is like, calm it down. Be still.
Well, he speaks and the storm subsides, right?
Yeah.
And he's like, why are you afraid? I'm here, like, I'll calm the storm. I'm over it. Yeah.
For these little grasshoppers that think the world's coming to an end.
Well, we're almost out of time, but I want to ask, What's I know you mentioned the Comics for Christ. Is there any other books or something that you've read or listened to that's inspired you lately?
Man, lately I've been really diving deep into Walt Disney's history and how he weathered the storms. And there's dark sides of Walt, and he was kind of a dictator in a certain degree, and smoked like 10,000 cigarettes, and you don't look at his bad and try to replicate that, but the good side of him was he was leading these massive teams on these crazy projects, and he was riding out huge storms, and he looked at debt, and always, because debt is very scary too. If you get into debt, and I'm in some debt with this business, that can weigh on your shoulders too. Like, oh my gosh, now I like need to sell a book because my heart is throbbing off the debt. And that's given me some solace, is just seeing that guy was writing sometimes $2 million in debt, and everyone's telling him it's over. And he just kept pushing forward because he believed in himself and in his vision. So reading biographies is really good, I think, really important, and helps. If you can read biographies on people that are doing similar stuff, it could give you kind of a blueprint for how to get through some of the similar storms.
All right. Is there a question I should have asked you that I didn't ask?
No, I don't know. I'm so thankful for you guys, and girls and women in the group. It's really cool. I hope we could do Alpha Omega again soon. And
yeah, I will. Yeah. So let me ask you. Well, I thought of one. Do you think you'll do any more apostle books, like maybe like little compendium of different little stories of the apostles versus like one big Paul and Peter?
There's a chance. I mean, the Old Testament has an endless amount of stories. If I were to do the Old Testament, I don't even know how I would start it.
Which character would you want to tell a story of? One or two that you think?
Yeah, I mean, it's hard to.
I want to do Joseph.
Yeah, Joseph's amazing. And we've been working on this Joseph story, this little comic. We had like a short amount of time, and we made this 20-page Captain Underpants style art of Joseph, and it's like kind of funny. And yeah, Joseph, you answered it. Joseph's so important to me because I'm also a farmer, and
yeah,
he really speaks to me. And him through the storm, riding storms, man, that guy just had faith. And but I would want to do Genesis. I would have to do Genesis. That seems like you'd have to start at the beginning, and that would be exciting to try to do that. And then I would be done, I think.
Yeah. Go back to master gardening. All right, guys, I gotta go grow food. Well, Mario, thank you so much. Thank you for taking the time. I'll reiterate, Mario of Bare Truth Books. Please check out his Paul the Apostle, Peter the Apostle. I can't wait to read Your Hiding Place. Like you said, if you don't know that story, that's definitely worth checking out. I told you I was going to tell my mom because she had us watch the movies and all that. So I was like, my friend is making a graphic novel. Yeah. She didn't seem as excited as I was, mostly because she's probably not into comics, but I was excited.
Yeah, and thank you so much. And if you can go buy a book, it really helps and supports us. If you go onto the website, there's a 20% off right off the bat that just pops up. Any of your support or sharing with anybody, all that helps so much. You have no idea. Like, please support these Christian publishers. We need to support each other more.
Yeah, go buy a few books. One for you and some friends. All right.
Yeah, and I didn't even mention we're doing a book drive. We're partnered with a nonprofit urban youth collaborative where we're asking people they can go on there and buy a book, and it gets put into the hands of underserved youth in San Diego through a ministry
nice.
that's already established. So, but thank you so much, and thanks for any support. It really, really helps, and we appreciate it.
Yeah, of course. All right, just hang on here a minute. I'm gonna. Bye, everyone.